I want you there, Maya, right in the front row when I marry Simone. I want you to see what a real woman looks like." Victor's words echoed in Maya's mind as she stared at the gold-embossed wedding invitation in her trembling hands. Her best friend Zara snatched it away, her eyes blazing with fury. "Tell me you're not seriously considering this, Maya. Tell me you're going to burn this piece of trash and forget that man ever existed." But Maya's hand instinctively moved to her belly, a small smile playing at the corners of her lips. Oh, she was going to that wedding, but not for the reasons Victor expected. 7 years earlier, Maya had believed in fairy tales. She'd believed that love conquered all, that devotion mattered more than money, that patience was its own reward. She'd been wrong about everything except one thing. She'd been right about her own worth. It had just taken her losing everything to finally see it. The night Victor threw her out had started like any other disappointing evening. Maya had prepared his favorite meal, jollof rice with perfectly seasoned grilled tilapia, the kind that took hours of careful preparation. She'd set the table with their wedding china, lit candles, and waited. And waited. Victor walked in at 9:30, his designer suit crisp despite the Lagos heat, his phone pressed to his ear as he waved her off dismissively. "No, tell them the deal is non-negotiable," he barked into the phone, walking past her as if she were furniture. "I didn't build a multi-million naira empire by being soft." Maya watched the candles melt into puddles of wax. The food grew cold. She didn't move to reheat it. What was the point? This had become their ritual. Her hoping, him dismissing, both of them pretending the elephant in the room didn't exist. When he finally ended his call and sat down, he didn't thank her for the meal. He didn't acknowledge the effort. Instead, he pushed the rice around his plate and said the words that had become his favorite weapon. "My mother called again today. She wanted to know when we're giving her grandchildren." What was I supposed to tell her, Maya? That after 7 years, my wife is still barren? The word hit her like a slap. Barren. As if she were a dried-up field, useless and worthless. "Victor, I've asked you so many times. Let's go see a doctor together. Let's both get tested and find out. There's nothing wrong with me." His fist slammed on the table, making the china rattle. "I'm a man. Men in my family don't have problems. It's you. It's always been you." Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes, but refused to let them fall. Not anymore. She'd cried enough tears over 7 years to fill the Lagos lagoon. "How do you know if you won't get tested?" Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Victor stood up, his chair scraping violently against the floor. "Because I'm not defective, Maya. Unlike you, I come from a line of strong, fertile people. My grandfather had 12 children. My father had 7. The problem isn't me." He grabbed his car keys and headed for the door. "I'm staying at the Eco Hotel tonight. I need to think about our future. Or if we even have one." The door slammed, and Maya finally let the tears come. She cried into her hands, her shoulders shaking with 7 years of accumulated grief and frustration. She'd been a good wife, a devoted wife. She'd given up her dreams of opening a restaurant to support Victor's business ambitions. She'd endured his mother's cutting remarks, his sister's pitying glances, his friends' jokes about his broken equipment at home. And for what? To be called barren and thrown away like garbage? But that night turned out to be just the rehearsal for the real devastation that came 2 weeks later. Victor's family had gathered at his mother's mansion in Ikoyi for what Maya thought was a regular Sunday lunch. She should have known something was wrong when Victor's sisters avoided meeting her eyes, when his mother served her last, when the room fell silent as she entered. "Maya, sit down," Victor's mother commanded, her voice dripping with false sweetness, the kind of sweetness that preceded poison. Maya sat, her hands folded in her lap, her heart beginning to race. Victor stood up, clearing his throat like he was about to give a business presentation. In a way, he was. The business of discarding a wife. "I've made a decision," he announced to the room, though his eyes were fixed on a point just above Maya's head. After 7 years of waiting, of hoping, of praying, it's clear that this marriage has been a disappointment. Maya has failed in her primary duty as a wife. The words hit her like physical blows. Maya tried to speak, but her voice wouldn't come. "You've been given every opportunity," his mother chimed in, nodding vigorously. "The best doctors, the best food, the best home. And yet nothing. Not even one pregnancy. Not even a miscarriage to show you're trying. That's not fair." Maya finally found her voice. "I've been asking Victor to get tested too. This could be—" "Enough!" Victor's roar silenced her. "I will not have you embarrass me in front of my family by suggesting I'm the problem. I've been patient enough, too patient. But every man has his limits." He pulled out a folder from his briefcase and threw it on the table in front of her. "Divorce papers. I've already signed them. You can sign them now or later. But either way, this marriage is over." Maya's hands shook as she opened the folder. The words blurred through her tears. Irreconcilable differences, failure to produce offspring, division of assets. Nothing. He was taking everything. "Victor, please," she whispered, hating herself for begging but unable to stop. "Can we just talk about this privately? Can we—" "There's nothing to talk about," he said coldly. "I need a wife who can give me children, an heir for my business empire. You've had 7 years to prove yourself, and you've failed. It's time I moved on with someone who can actually fulfill her marital obligations." His sisters nodded. His mother smiled. And Maya realized she was completely alone in a room full of people who had never really accepted her. "Sign the papers, Maya," Victor said, his voice softer now but no less cruel. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I'll give you 2 weeks to pack your things and leave the house." That's more than generous. Maya looked around the room at the faces of the family she'd tried so hard to please. Not one person defended her. Not one person suggested counseling, or patience, or compassion. They just stared at her with varying degrees of pity and satisfaction. She picked up the pen with trembling fingers. "Good girl," Victor's mother said, as if she were praising a child. Maya signed her name on the papers, each stroke of the pen feeling like she was signing away her own dignity. When she finished, she stood up on shaky legs. "I'll be gone by the end of the week," she said quietly. "You won't have to see me again." "See?" Victor's youngest sister whispered loudly to another. "She knows she's the problem. At least she's not delusional." Maya walked out of that house with her head down, and her heart shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. She had nowhere to go. Her parents had passed away years ago. She'd lost touch with most of her friends after marriage, the way Victor had always preferred it. "A married woman's place is with her husband's family," he'd always said. She had 3,000 naira in her purse and a phone with 15% battery, and absolutely no idea what to do next. It was Zara who saved her. Zara, her friend from university, who she hadn't spoken to in 3 years because Victor had convinced her that Zara was a bad influence. Maya sat in a bus stop shelter as rain poured down around her, her hands shaking so badly she could barely dial the number. She wasn't even sure Zara would pick up after so long. "Maya? Maya, is that you?" Zara's voice came through the phone, and Maya burst into tears. "I have nowhere to go," she sobbed. "He threw me out. He divorced me. Zara, I have nothing." "Send me your location right now," Zara commanded. "Don't move. I'm coming to get you." 20 minutes later, Zara pulled up in her modest Toyota, and Maya had never been so grateful to see another human being in her life. She climbed into the car, soaking wet and shivering, and Zara just wrapped her arms around her and let her cry. "That man is a demon," Zara said fiercely when Maya finally caught her breath. "An absolute demon. But you're going to be okay. You hear me? You're going to be better than okay." Zara's apartment was small, a one-bedroom flat in Yaba that was nothing like the sprawling mansion Maya had left behind. But it felt like sanctuary. Zara made her tea, gave her dry clothes, and, most importantly, she listened without judgment as Maya poured out 7 years of accumulated pain. "He kept saying I was barren," Maya whispered, her voice hoarse from crying. "Maybe he's right. Maybe there really is something wrong with me." "Did you get tested?" Zara asked gently. Maya shook her head. "He refused to let me go. He said it would be a waste of money because we both knew where the problem was." Zara's eyes flashed with anger. That manipulative, controlling, narcissistic. She took a deep breath. "Maya, listen to me very carefully. Tomorrow, we're going to a hospital. A proper hospital. And you're going to get tested. Not because I think anything is wrong with you, but because you deserve to know the truth." "I don't have money for—" "I'll pay for it," Zara interrupted. "Consider it my gift to your new life. The life where you get to find out the truth instead of just accepting what some cruel man tells you about yourself." The next morning, still numb and exhausted, Maya found herself in the consultation room of Dr. Adebayo, a kind-faced woman who listened to her story with compassionate eyes. "I see this more often than you'd think," Dr. Adebayo said sadly. "Women blamed for years, sometimes decades, for something that was never their fault. Let's run a full panel of tests, shall we? We'll know everything within a week." That week felt like the longest of Maya's life. She barely slept, barely ate, just lay on Zara's couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the tests would reveal and what it would mean either way. If she was infertile, then Victor had been right. All his cruelty would be justified. If she wasn't, then she'd wasted 7 years of her life with a man who'd lied to her, manipulated her, and destroyed her self-worth based on nothing but his own pride. She wasn't sure which outcome was worse. When the results came back, Zara insisted on going with her to hear them. Maya was grateful. She didn't think she could face it alone. Dr. Adebayo smiled as they entered her office. That was Maya's first clue. "Mrs. Maya," she began, then corrected herself. "My apologies, Ms. Maya. I have good news. Very good news. Your test results came back completely normal. Your ovarian reserve is excellent. Your hormone levels are perfect. Your fallopian tubes are clear. There is absolutely nothing wrong with your fertility. You are completely capable of conceiving and carrying a child." The words didn't make sense at first. Maya just stared at the doctor, her brain refusing to process the information. I don't understand," she whispered. "You're fertile," Dr. Adebayo said gently. "Perfectly fertile. Whatever problems existed in your marriage, they weren't because of you." If you're watching this and can't believe what Maya just discovered, wait until you hear what happens next. But first, if stories like this captivate you, hit that subscribe button because you won't want to miss how this unfolds. Maya felt something crack open inside her chest. 7 years. 7 years of shame. 7 years of blame. 7 years of believing she was broken, defective, less than. And it had all been a lie. Then why? She couldn't finish the sentence. Dr. Adebayo's face grew serious. "Ms. Maya, I can't diagnose someone who isn't my patient. But what I can tell you is that infertility in couples is 50-50. Half the time it's the woman, half the time it's the man. And many men refuse to get tested because of pride or cultural stigma. They'd rather blame their wives than face the possibility that they might be the ones with the problem. Zara grabbed Maya's hand and squeezed it so hard it hurt. "That bastard," she hissed. "That absolute bastard knew. He had to have known." "We don't know that," Dr. Adebayo said carefully. "But what we do know is that Maya is healthy and capable, and that's what matters now." Maya walked out of that hospital in a daze. Everything she'd believed about herself for 7 years had just been shattered. She wasn't broken. She wasn't defective. She wasn't barren. Victor had destroyed their marriage, humiliated her in front of his family, and thrown her out onto the street based on an assumption he'd never bothered to verify. The grief hit her in waves over the following days. Grief for the time she'd lost. Grief for the woman she could have been. Grief for every moment she'd spent hating herself for something that was never her fault. But slowly, beneath the grief, something else started to grow. Something that felt almost like anger, but cleaner, sharper. It felt like clarity. "I wasted 7 years with that man," Maya told Zara one night, as they sat on the small balcony of the apartment, watching Lagos spread out beneath them in a sea of lights. 7 years of my life trying to please someone who never valued me." "You didn't waste them," Zara said firmly. "You learned from them. You learned what you won't accept anymore, what you won't tolerate, what you deserve." "And what do I deserve?" Maya asked, the question genuine. "Everything," Zara said simply. "You deserve everything, Maya. Love, respect, truth, children if you want them, success, joy, all of it. And you're going to get it. But first, you need to figure out what Maya wants. Not what Victor wanted. Not what his family expected. What do you want?" It was the first time in 7 years anyone had asked her that question. The first time she'd even thought to ask herself. "I want to cook," she said slowly, the answer surprising even herself. "I want to open a restaurant, or maybe just a small catering business. Something that's mine, something I built." Zara grinned. "Then that's exactly what we're going to do." The next 6 months were hard in ways Maya had never experienced. She worked 2 jobs, one at a local eatery, and another cleaning offices at night. Every kobo she saved went into her dream. Zara helped her create flyers for a catering service. They started small, just cooking for Zara's office parties and small gatherings. But word spread. Maya's cooking had always been exceptional, and now that she was cooking for herself, cooking with purpose and passion instead of duty and fear, it was even better. Her jollof rice became legendary. Her pepper soup made people weep with joy. Her puff puff was so light and perfect that people started placing orders weeks in advance. Slowly, painfully, one small job at a time, Maya's kitchen was born. She was stirring a massive pot of egusi soup for a 50th birthday party when she met Daniel. He'd come to pick up an order for his mother and found Maya in Zara's tiny kitchen, surrounded by pots and pans and ingredients, her face flushed from the heat, her hair tied back in a simple scarf. She was singing to herself, some old gospel song, and she didn't notice him at first. "That smells like heaven," he said, and Maya jumped, nearly dropping her spoon. "I'm so sorry," she laughed, pressing a hand to her racing heart. "You scared me. You must be Mrs. Okafor's son? Your order is almost ready." "No rush," Daniel said, and something about the way he smiled at her made Maya's breath catch. It wasn't the predatory smile she'd seen on so many men's faces over the years. It was kind, genuine, like he was happy just to be there. They talked while she finished packing his mother's order. Small talk at first, about food and Lagos traffic and the rain that had been threatening all day. But then deeper things. He asked about her business, and she found herself telling him about her dreams to expand. He listened like her words mattered, like she mattered. "I'm a civil engineer," he told her. "Nothing as exciting as creating food that makes people this happy. My mother hasn't stopped talking about your cooking for weeks." "Tell her I said thank you," Maya said, handing him the carefully packed containers. "And tell her the jollof rice today is special. I added extra love." Daniel laughed. "I'll tell her. And Maya, I'd like to come back, not for my mother's orders, for my own. Would that be okay?" Something warm bloomed in Maya's chest. That would be very okay. He came back the next week, and the week after that. And soon it wasn't about the food at all. They'd meet for lunch in small restaurants. They'd walk along the beach at Bar Beach, talking about everything and nothing. Daniel made her laugh in a way she'd forgotten was possible. He asked her about her day, and actually listened to the answer. He wanted to know her thoughts, her dreams, her fears. "I was married before," she told him one evening, 6 months after they'd met. They were sitting in his car, watching the sun set over the water. "It ended badly." "I know," Daniel said gently. "Zara told me. Not the details, just that you'd been through something difficult." Maya tensed, waiting for the questions, the judgment. But Daniel just took her hand. "Whatever happened, it wasn't your fault," he said. "I don't need to know the details to know that. I know you, Maya. I know your heart. And whatever he did, or said, to make you doubt yourself, he was wrong." Maya started crying. She couldn't help it. "He said I was barren. He blamed me for 7 years. He made me feel worthless." "Then he was a fool," Daniel said fiercely. "A blind, stupid fool who didn't deserve you. And his loss is my gain, if you'll have me." They were married 8 months later in a small ceremony at a local church. Nothing like the elaborate wedding Maya had had with Victor. This time, there were only 30 people, all of them people who genuinely loved and supported them. Zara was her maid of honor. Daniel's mother, who'd become like a mother to Maya, cried happy tears. And when Daniel looked at her and said his vows, Maya knew she'd finally found what love was supposed to feel like. The pregnancy came as a shock 5 months after their wedding. Maya had been feeling tired, nauseous in the mornings. She'd dismissed it as stress from growing her business. But Zara had insisted she take a test, just to be sure. 3 lines. Positive. Maya stared at the test for a full 5 minutes, unable to believe what she was seeing. Then she took 3 more tests. All positive. Then she went to the doctor, sure there had to be some mistake. "Congratulations, Mrs. Thompson," Dr. Adebayo said, beaming. "You're about 8 weeks pregnant, and based on the ultrasound, I have more good news. You're having triplets." Triplets. 3 babies. 3 perfect, healthy babies growing inside her. The woman Victor had called Barren was carrying 3 children. Maya laughed until she cried, until the laughter and tears became indistinguishable. Dr. Adebayo hugged her, and Maya realized this was what vindication felt like. Not bitter, not angry, just free. Daniel cried when she told him, actual tears streaming down his face as he held her and whispered, "Thank you," over and over into her hair. "Our family," he kept saying. "Our beautiful family." The pregnancy was hard. Carrying 3 babies took a toll on Maya's body. But every ache, every moment of discomfort felt like a gift. She'd watch her belly grow, feeling the babies move inside her, and marvel at the miracle of it. The miracle that Victor had convinced her would never happen. The miracle he'd thrown her away for not producing. She was 7 months pregnant, her belly massive and her face glowing with health and happiness, when the wedding invitation arrived in the mail. "Victor Okonkwo and Simone Adebayo request the honor of your presence at their wedding celebration." The invitation was thick, expensive, gold embossed, the kind of invitation that screamed wealth and status. Maya stared at it, confused. Why would Victor invite her to his wedding? Then her phone rang. Victor's number. She hadn't seen or heard from him in over 2 years. Her hand hovered over the decline button, but something made her answer. "Did you get my invitation?" Victor's voice was smooth, confident, the voice of a man who thought he'd already won. "I got it," Maya said carefully. "Why did you send it?" Victor laughed. "Because I want you there, Maya. I want you to see what you lost. I want you sitting in that church, watching me marry a real woman, a woman who can give me what you never could." The cruelty in his voice should have hurt. 2 years ago, it would have destroyed her. But now, with 3 babies moving inside her and a husband who loved her waiting at home, it just sounded pathetic. "A real woman," Maya repeated slowly. "That's right. Simone is everything you weren't. Beautiful, successful, and fertile. We're planning to start our family right away. Something you and I could never do because of your deficiencies." Maya felt a smile tugging at her lips. "My deficiencies." "I'm not trying to be cruel," Victor said, though his tone suggested otherwise. "I just thought you should see what a successful marriage looks like. Maybe you'll learn something. You've probably been struggling since I left you, haven't you? I heard you're running some little catering business. How quaint." Maya hummed noncommittally. "So you'll come? To the wedding?" Victor pressed. "I really do want you there, Maya. Front row seat. I want you to see everything you gave up when you failed me." Now you're probably thinking Maya should just hang up and forget this man exists. But what she does next will absolutely shock you. Don't go anywhere. "I'll be there," Maya heard herself say. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." Zara thought she'd lost her mind. "Why would you put yourself through that?" she demanded, pacing around Maya's living room. "Why would you give that man the satisfaction?" Maya just smiled, her hand resting on her belly where one of the triplets was doing gymnastics. "Trust me, Zara. I know what I'm doing." "You're 7 months pregnant with triplets. You should be resting, not waddling into some tacky wedding to watch your ex-husband parade around his new wife." "I won't be waddling," Maya said calmly. "I'll be gliding, in style, in a car that costs more than Victor's entire wedding budget." Zara stopped pacing. "What are you planning?" "Justice," Maya said simply. "Not revenge. Justice. There's a difference?" Daniel was less worried than Zara, but still concerned. "Are you sure about this, love? I don't want you stressed. Think about the babies." "I'm thinking about them," Maya assured him. "I'm thinking about how I want them to know their mother is strong, how I want them to understand that the truth always comes out, that dignity and grace matter more than revenge." "Then I'm coming with you," Daniel said firmly. "You're not facing him alone." The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at the most expensive event center in Victoria Island. Victor had spared no expense. Ice sculptures, a 10-tier cake, an orchestra. Everything screamed, "Look at how successful and important I am." Maya had received updates from mutual acquaintances who were also invited. Victor had been telling everyone that his ex-wife was coming to the wedding. He'd been telling them she was poor now, struggling, barely making ends meet with her little catering business. He wanted his guests to pity her, to see the contrast between the successful man who'd moved on and the barren woman he'd left behind. He had no idea what was actually coming. Maya spent the morning of the wedding being pampered. A professional makeup artist came to her home, a hairstylist who specialized in elegant updos. She wore a custom-made dress in deep emerald green that accommodated her pregnancy beautifully, making her look like a queen rather than hiding her condition. Diamond earrings that Daniel had bought her for their anniversary sparkled at her ears. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. This wasn't the broken, ashamed Maya who'd signed divorce papers with trembling hands. This was a woman who knew her worth. The Rolls-Royce Phantom arrived at 2 p.m., sent by Daniel's uncle, who owned a luxury car rental business and thought Maya's plan was brilliant. The driver, a dignified older gentleman named Mr. Emmanuel, bowed slightly as he opened the door for her. "Ma'am, you look absolutely magnificent," he said, with genuine admiration. "Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. Let's go make an entrance." They arrived at the event center at exactly 3:15, 45 minutes after the ceremony had started. Perfect timing. The vows would be done, but the reception wouldn't have started yet. Everyone would be milling about, taking photos, sipping champagne. Everyone would see her arrive. The Rolls-Royce glided to a stop right in front of the main entrance. Several guests who'd stepped outside for air turned to look, curious about who would arrive in such an obviously expensive vehicle. Mr. Emmanuel came around and opened Maya's door with a flourish. Maya stepped out slowly, gracefully, one hand on her belly. The whispers started immediately. Is that Maya? Victor's ex-wife? She's pregnant. Look at that car. Look at that dress." Maya smiled serenely and walked toward the entrance, her head high. Daniel emerged from the other side of the car, handsome in a tailored suit, and offered her his arm. They walked in together, and the room fell silent. Victor was standing near the front with Simone, posing for photos. He heard the silence and turned to see what had caused it. The color drained from his face when he saw Maya. This wasn't the Maya he'd pictured. This wasn't the broken, poor, struggling woman he'd described to his guests. This was a radiant, glowing, obviously pregnant woman, dripping in elegance and wealth. And she was walking toward him with a smile. "Victor," Maya said warmly when she reached him. "Congratulations on your wedding. You look wonderful." Victor couldn't speak. He just stared at her belly, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. Simone, sensing something was wrong, stepped forward. "You must be Maya. Victor's told me so much about you." Her tone was polite but cool, the tone of a woman marking her territory. "All good things, I hope," Maya said pleasantly. "And congratulations to you as well, Simone. What a beautiful dress." "Thank you," Simone said, eyeing Maya's obvious pregnancy with confusion. "I didn't realize you were expecting." "Oh yes," Maya said, her hand moving to her belly. 7 months along, with triplets actually, 3 healthy babies. The doctors say it's quite remarkable." The crowd around them had grown silent, everyone straining to hear. Victor's face had gone from white to red. "Triplets," Victor finally managed to croak out. "You're having triplets?" Maya hummed. "My husband Daniel and I are absolutely thrilled. Aren't we, darling?" Daniel stepped forward, shaking Victor's limp hand. "Pleasure to meet you. Maya's told me about you. Thank you for the invitation. This is quite the celebration." Someone in the crowd laughed nervously. Others whispered more loudly now. The math was adding up in people's heads. Victor had divorced Maya, calling her Barren. Less than 3 years later, she was pregnant with triplets, which meant Victor's mother pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with shock. "Maya, you're pregnant? How is this possible?" "The usual way, Ma," Maya said sweetly, "when 2 people love each other very much. But Victor said you couldn't have children. He said you were tested, and you were infertile." The silence in the room was deafening. Maya let it hang there for a moment before speaking, her voice clear and calm. "Actually, Ma, I was tested. After the divorce. The doctors told me I'm perfectly fertile. They said there was nothing wrong with me at all. Isn't that wonderful news?" You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone was looking at Victor now. His mother's face was going through a complicated series of expressions. Simone had gone very still beside him, her hand dropping away from his arm. "Victor," Simone said quietly Dangerously? What is she talking about? She's lying, Victor said desperately. She's trying to ruin our wedding day. She's always been jealous. I have the medical records, Maya said calmly, from Dr. Adebayo at Lagoon Hospital, dated about a week after our divorce was finalized. They show that my ovarian reserve is excellent. My hormone levels are perfect, and there's no reason I couldn't conceive. Would you like to see them? Victor, Simone's voice was shaking now. Did you ever get tested? When you couldn't have children with Maya, did you ever actually get tested? Victor's silence was answer enough. Oh my God, Simone breathed. Oh my God, you blamed her. You divorced her, you called her Barren, you humiliated her, and you never even got tested yourself? Simone, let me explain. Did you ever get tested? Simone shouted now, her voice echoing through the silent room. Answer me. There was no need. I knew it wasn't me. How? Simone demanded. How did you know? Because you're a man? Because your ego was too big to consider you might be the problem? Victor's mother grabbed his arm. Victor, tell me you got tested. Tell me you know for sure. But Victor couldn't say anything. The truth was written all over his face. He'd never been tested. He'd blamed Maya, destroyed their marriage, and moved on, all without ever confirming what the actual problem was. If you can't believe what's happening right now, wait until you hear what Simone does next. But before we continue, if you're enjoying this story of truth and justice, show some love by hitting that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and drop a comment telling me what you think Maya should say next. Simone was crying now, her beautiful makeup running down her face. We've been trying for 6 months, she said, her voice breaking. 6 months, Victor. And you kept telling me to be patient. You kept saying it would happen. But you knew, didn't you? You suspected. Simone, please. Were you ever going to tell me? She demanded. Were you going to let me waste years of my life like you did to her? Were you going to blame me too when it didn't happen? Can we please discuss this in private? Victor hissed, acutely aware of the hundreds of guests watching his life implode. Private? Simone laughed bitterly. You invited your ex-wife to humiliate her in public, and now you want privacy? No, Victor. No. Everyone here should know exactly what kind of man you are. She turned to Maya, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, she said. I'm so sorry for what he did to you. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Maya's heart broke a little for this woman. It's not your fault, she said gently. You didn't know, because he didn't tell you. That's on him, not you. Simone nodded, then turned back to Victor. We're done. This wedding is over. I'm not marrying a man who lies, who manipulates, who blames others for his own shortcomings. She pulled off her engagement ring and threw it at Victor's feet. Then she gathered her dress and walked out of the event center, her bridesmaids scrambling to follow her. The crowd erupted in whispers and shocked exclamations. Victor's mother was crying. His sisters were arguing with him in heated whispers. Several guests were taking photos and videos, no doubt already uploading the drama to social media. Victor turned to Maya, and for the first time, she saw something in his eyes, besides arrogance. Mama looked lost, broken, small. Why did you come? He asked quietly. Why did you do this? Maya looked at him for a long moment. You invited me, Victor. You wanted me to come see what I'd lost. So I came. I came to show you what you lost. Not money. Not status. Truth. Honesty. A woman who would have loved you through anything if you'd just been willing to face reality with her. I'm sorry, he whispered. Maya, I'm so sorry. I was wrong about everything. I was too proud to admit I might be the problem. I thought if I got tested and it was me, I'd lose everything. My reputation, my family's respect, my sense of who I was. So you destroyed me instead, Maya said softly. You made me believe I was broken to protect your ego. I know, Victor said, tears starting to fall. I know, and I've regretted it every day since you left. I see you thriving, and I realize what a fool I was. I thought if I remarried, if I had this big wedding, I could prove to everyone, including myself, that I made the right choice. But I was wrong. I've been wrong about everything. Maya felt one of the babies kick hard against her ribs, as if reminding her of what truly mattered. She looked at Victor, this man who'd consumed 7 years of her life, who'd nearly destroyed her spirit, and she felt nothing but pity. Victor, I forgive you, she said, and she meant it. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I deserve to move forward without carrying the weight of your mistakes. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean what you did was okay. It just means I'm choosing not to let it poison my happiness anymore. Victor wiped his eyes. Are you happy? Truly happy? Maya smiled, genuine and bright. Happier than I ever thought possible. I have a husband who loves me, respects me, and values my truth. I have 3 babies on the way. I have a business that's thriving because I built it with my own hands and my own passion. I have friends who stood by me when I had nothing. I have everything that matters, Victor. Everything you couldn't give me because you were too busy protecting a lie. She squeezed Daniel's hand. We should go. I'm getting tired, and the babies need rest. As they turned to leave, Victor's mother called out, Maya, wait. Maya paused, turning back to face the woman who'd once looked at her with such disdain. I owe you an apology, Victor's mother said, her voice thick with emotion. I was cruel to you. We all were. We blamed you for something that was never your fault. I pushed my son to divorce you without ever insisting he find out the truth first. I failed you as a mother-in-law, and I failed my son by teaching him that pride was more important than truth. Maya nodded slowly. Thank you for saying that. I accept your apology. Those babies, Victor's mother said, gesturing to Maya's belly. They're blessed to have you as their mother. You're stronger than all of us. The crowd parted as Maya and Daniel walked back through the event center toward the exit. People stared, some with admiration, some with shock, some with pity for Victor. Maya kept her head high, her hand resting on her belly, her heart finally at peace. As Mr. Emmanuel opened the door of the Rolls-Royce, a young woman approached Maya hesitantly. She couldn't have been more than 25, and she looked nervous. Excuse me, she said softly. I'm sorry to bother you, but I just wanted to say thank you. Maya paused. Thank you? For what? For telling the truth, the woman said, tears in her eyes. My boyfriend has been blaming me for 2 years for not getting pregnant. He refuses to get tested. Says real men don't have those problems. But watching you stand up there, watching you speak your truth with so much grace and dignity, it gave me courage. I'm going to get tested myself, and if I'm fine, I'm going to leave him. I'm not going to let anyone make me feel broken for something that might not even be my fault. Maya's eyes filled with tears. She reached out and squeezed the young woman's hand. You deserve the truth, she said firmly. You deserve a partner who will face reality with you, not hide from it. Don't let anyone steal years of your life with lies. Promise me. I promise, the woman said, smiling through her tears. Thank you. Thank you so much. As the Rolls-Royce pulled away from the event center, Maya looked back one last time. She could see Victor standing in the doorway, watching her leave. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, not by her actions, but by the weight of his own choices finally catching up with him. Are you okay? Daniel asked, taking her hand. Maya turned away from the window and looked at her husband. This kind and honest man who'd helped her rebuild her life. "I'm perfect," she said. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." 3 months later, Maya gave birth to 2 boys and a girl. The delivery was complicated because of the triplets, but all 3 babies were healthy and perfect. Victor Samuel Thompson, named after Daniel's father. Grace Zara Thompson, named after God's grace and the friend who'd saved Maya's life. And Daniel Emmanuel Thompson Jr., named after the man who'd shown Maya what real love looked like. Zara cried when she held baby Grace for the first time. "She's perfect," she whispered. "They're all perfect. You did it, Maya. You actually did it." "We did it," Maya corrected. "I couldn't have survived without you." The photos of Maya's babies went viral on social media, not because she posted them seeking attention, but because people who'd been at Victor's wedding couldn't stop talking about what had happened. The story spread across Lagos, then across Nigeria, then beyond. A woman wrongly blamed, divorced, and discarded, who rose from the ashes to build a beautiful life and prove her truth. It resonated with thousands of women who'd faced similar situations, who'd been blamed for infertility without proof, who'd been made to feel less than because of circumstances beyond their control. Maya's catering business exploded with new clients. Everyone wanted to support the woman who'd stood up for herself with such grace and dignity. Within a year, she'd opened her first restaurant, a small but elegant space in Lekki that served authentic Nigerian cuisine with a modern twist. She called it Grace Kitchen, after her daughter and after the grace that had carried her through her darkest moments. Victor's life took a different trajectory. The video of the wedding confrontation had been shared thousands of times. His reputation in business circles suffered. People whispered about the man who'd been too proud to get tested, who'd blamed his wife for his own failures. He eventually did get tested, and the results confirmed what everyone had suspected. He had severe male factor infertility, treatable in some cases, but he'd wasted years refusing to even investigate. He reached out to Maya 6 months after her babies were born, a simple text message that said, "I saw the photos of your children. They're beautiful. You deserved this happiness all along. I hope someday I can forgive myself for what I did to you." Maya showed the message to Daniel, who just shook his head. "Do you want to respond?" Maya thought about it for a long moment, watching her 3 babies sleeping peacefully in their cribs. Grace had Daniel's nose. The boys had her eyes. They were perfect in every way. "No," she said finally. "He needs to figure out how to forgive himself. That's not my responsibility anymore. My responsibility is to these babies, to you, to our life together. Victor is part of my past, but he's not part of my future." She deleted the message and never looked back. 5 years later, Maya's kitchen had expanded to 3 locations across Lagos. She'd been featured in several magazines as a successful entrepreneur and had even published a cookbook. Her triplets were thriving, starting their first year of primary school. Daniel had been promoted to senior engineer at his firm. Life was full and beautiful, and everything Maya had once thought was impossible. She was at the Ikeja location of her restaurant, testing a new recipe for coconut rice, when one of her staff members came to find her. "Ma, there's someone here to see you. He says it's important." Maya wiped her hands on her apron and walked to the front of the restaurant. Victor stood there, looking older and more tired than she remembered. He was alone, no entourage, no expensive suit, just a man in simple clothes looking lost. "Victor," Maya said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I know I have no right to come here," he said quickly. "I know you've moved on, and you should have. But I needed to see you, to tell you in person how sorry I am." Maya sighed. "Victor, we've been through this. I forgave you years ago. What more do you want from me?" "Nothing," Victor said. I don't want anything from you. I just needed you to know that I've spent the last 5 years in therapy, working on myself, understanding why I did what I did. My therapist says I have narcissistic tendencies rooted in my father's expectations and cultural pressures about masculinity. I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to understand, so I don't hurt anyone else the way I hurt you. Maya studied his face. He looked sincere. Broken, but sincere. Have you dated anyone since Simone? She asked. Victor shook his head. I'm not ready. My therapist says I need to heal myself before I can be in a healthy relationship. And honestly, after what I did to you, after what I almost did to Simone, I don't trust myself with anyone's heart. That's probably wise, Maya said gently. I saw your cookbook, Victor continued. I bought it. I tried to make your jollof rice recipe, and it was terrible. He laughed, but it was a sad sound. I realized I never really appreciated what you did, how much love and skill went into every meal you made for me. I took it for granted, just like I took you for granted. Maya felt her eyes getting misty, not because she still had feelings for Victor, but because she could see he was genuinely trying to become a better person. It was too late for them, far too late, but maybe it wasn't too late for him. Victor, I appreciate you coming here. I appreciate you doing the work to understand yourself. But I need you to understand something. I'm happy now. Truly, deeply happy. My life is full of love and purpose and joy. You were a chapter in my story, an important one, because it taught me strength I didn't know I had. But you're not part of my story anymore. I know, Victor said. I'm not here to ask for another chance. I just needed to look you in the eye and tell you that you were right about everything. You deserved better. You deserved truth and respect and partnership. You deserved someone who would have walked through fire for you. And instead, you got someone who threw you out the moment things got difficult. I'm sorry. I will spend the rest of my life being sorry. One of Maya's triplets, little Grace, came running from the back of the restaurant where she'd been coloring. Mummy, Mummy, look what I drew. She skidded to a stop when she saw Victor, suddenly shy around the stranger. It's okay, baby, Maya said, scooping Grace up. This is an old friend of Mummy's. Can you say hello? Hello, Grace said politely, then buried her face in Maya's neck. Victor's eyes filled with tears as he looked at the little girl. She's beautiful, he whispered. They all must be. They are, Maya said simply. They're my whole world. Victor nodded, backing toward the door. Thank you for seeing me, Maya, for letting me say what I needed to say. I won't bother you again. I just needed you to know that I finally understand. I finally get it. And I'm sorry I didn't get it sooner. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you, of everything you've built. You turned pain into purpose, and that's incredible. I hope someday I can do the same. Then he was gone. Grace looked up at her mother with curious eyes. Who was that man, Mummy? Maya kissed her daughter's forehead. Someone who taught Mummy an important lesson. That your worth isn't determined by other people's opinions, that the truth always matters, and that sometimes the hardest things we go through lead us to the best things in our lives. Like us? Grace asked. Maya laughed, hugging her daughter close. Exactly like you, baby. Exactly like you. That evening, Maya sat on her balcony with Daniel, watching the Lagos sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. The triplets were inside with their grandmother, who'd come to visit for the week. The house was full of laughter and love and the beautiful chaos of family life. Victor came by the restaurant today, Maya said. Daniel turned to her, concerned. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, Maya assured him. He just wanted to apologize. Again? More sincerely this time. I think he's actually doing the work to change. How do you feel about that? Daniel asked. Maya thought about it. I feel nothing, really. Not happiness for him, not anger, not satisfaction. Just nothing. He's become a stranger to me, someone I used to know in a different life. That's probably healthy, Daniel said, taking her hand. You know what the strangest thing is? Maya said. If none of that had happened, if Victor hadn't divorced me, if he hadn't thrown me out and forced me to rebuild, I wouldn't have this life. I wouldn't have you. I wouldn't have our babies. I wouldn't have my restaurants or my cookbook or the confidence to know my own worth. In some twisted way, his cruelty set me free. You set yourself free, Daniel corrected gently. He broke you, but you chose to rebuild. He tried to define you, but you chose to define yourself. That was all you, Maya. You did that. Maya leaned into her husband's shoulder, feeling gratitude wash over her. I wish I could go back and tell that broken woman crying in Zara's apartment that everything was going to be okay, that she was going to be more than okay, that she was going to be happy. She probably wouldn't have believed you, Daniel said with a smile. Probably not, Maya agreed. But she would have been wrong, just like Victor was wrong, just like everyone who doubted her was wrong. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Maya heard her children's laughter floating through the open window. Grace was telling her brothers a story, her voice animated and joyful. The boys were giggling, that pure, unself-conscious laughter that only children possess. This was her life now, this beautiful, imperfect, joyful life, built on truth and authenticity and the courage to walk away from lies, even when walking away felt impossible. If Maya's story touched your heart, if it reminded you that your worth isn't defined by others, if it showed you that truth and resilience can lead to beautiful new beginnings, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss stories like this. Drop a comment telling me what lesson you learned from Maya's journey. And share this video with someone who needs to hear that they are enough, exactly as they are. Your engagement helps these stories reach people who need them most. Years later, when people would ask Maya if she ever regretted wasting 7 years with Victor, she would smile and say no. Those years weren't wasted. They were lessons. They taught her what she wouldn't accept. They showed her the difference between a man who claims to love you and a man who actually does. They revealed her own strength, her resilience, her capacity to rise from ashes. Every part of our journey matters, she would tell people. Even the painful parts, especially the painful parts, because those are the parts that show us who we really are. Maya's story became something of a legend in Lagos. The woman who was called Barren and came back with triplets. The ex-wife who showed up to her ex-husband's wedding glowing with life and grace. The entrepreneur who turned her pain into profit and her struggles into success. But for Maya herself, she was just a woman who'd learned to believe in her own truth. A woman who'd discovered that forgiveness didn't mean forgetting or condoning, but rather releasing herself from the prison of bitterness. A woman who'd found that real love existed, patient and kind, waiting for her when she was finally ready to receive it. On Grace's 10th birthday, Maya's daughter asked her a question that stopped her in her tracks. "Mummy, is it true you were married before Daddy?" Maya looked at her beautiful daughter, so full of life and curiosity, and decided to tell her the truth. Not all of it, not the parts that would hurt too much for a 10-year-old to understand, but the essential truth. "Yes, baby. I was married to someone else before your daddy." "What happened?" Grace asked, her eyes wide. "He wasn't very kind to me," Maya said carefully, "and we couldn't have babies together. He blamed me for that, and it hurt me very much. But then I met your daddy, and we fell in love, and we had you and your brothers. And I realized that sometimes the things that seem like endings are actually just new beginnings." Grace thought about this for a moment. "Did you forgive him? The man who wasn't kind?" "Yes, I did," Maya said. "Why?" Grace asked. "If he was mean to you, why did you forgive him?" Maya pulled her daughter close. "Because holding on to anger and hurt is like carrying heavy stones in your pocket. It weighs you down and makes it hard to move forward. Forgiveness isn't about saying what someone did was okay. It's about putting down those stones so you can run free." Grace nodded slowly, processing this wisdom. "I'm glad you put down the stones, Mummy. Because if you hadn't, you might not have found Daddy. And then we wouldn't exist." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "You're right, baby. You're absolutely right." That night, after the birthday party ended and the children were asleep, Maya stood in the nursery that was now Grace's bedroom, looking at the photos on the wall. Her wedding to Daniel, the triplets as newborns, family vacations and restaurant openings, and everyday moments of joy. Not a single photo included Victor or that old life. She'd left all of that behind, keeping only the lessons and releasing the pain. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to find Daniel in the doorway. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How far we've come," Maya said. "How different my life is from what I once thought it would be. How grateful I am for every twist and turn that led me here." Daniel wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Any regrets?" "Not a single one," Maya said firmly. "Every scar I carry, I earned, and every scar taught me something I needed to know. I wouldn't change anything because changing anything might mean not having this, not having us." They stood there in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other in the aftermath of pain and built something beautiful together. The truth was simple. Maya had been called barren, worthless, a failure. She'd been discarded like trash and forced to rebuild from nothing. But she'd taken that nothing and turned it into everything that mattered. Not out of spite or revenge, but out of the quiet determination to prove to herself that she was worthy of love, of success, of happiness. Victor had tried to write her story, to define her by his limitations and lies. But Maya had taken back the pen. She'd written her own ending, and it was better than anything he could have imagined. Because here's the thing about truth. You can suppress it, deny it, run from it, but eventually it will find its way into the light. Victor's lies had crumbled under the weight of reality. His pride had cost him 2 relationships and years of his life. But Maya's truth had set her free. Her honesty with herself, her courage to face reality, her refusal to let someone else's narrative define her worth, had led her to a life beyond her wildest dreams. Sometimes justice doesn't come as revenge. Sometimes it comes as simply living well, loving fully, and knowing your own worth regardless of what anyone else says about you. Maya learned that lesson the hard way, through tears and heartbreak, and nights when she thought the pain would never end. But she learned it. And in learning it, she became someone stronger, wiser, and more authentically herself than she'd ever been when she was trying to be what someone else wanted. As Maya finally left Grace's room and headed to bed, she paused at the mirror in the hallway. She looked at her reflection, this woman who'd survived so much and come out shining. She smiled at herself, something she never would have done in those dark years with Victor. "You did good," she whispered to her reflection. "You did really, really good." And she had. Against all odds, despite every obstacle, through every moment of doubt and pain, Maya had done more than just survive. She had thrived. She had built a life worth living, loved people worth loving, and most importantly, she had learned to love herself. That, more than the triplets, or the successful business, or the devoted husband, was her real victory. Not proving Victor wrong, but proving herself right. Right that she deserved better. Right that she was enough. Right that her worth had never been dependent on anyone else's validation. And somewhere across Lagos, Victor was learning the same lesson, just from the other side. That pride comes before a fall. That lies eventually unravel. That the people we hurt often move on to bigger and better things, while we're left holding the bag of our own mistakes. But that was his journey to walk. Maya's journey had led her home, to this beautiful life, to these sleeping children, to this patient husband, to this hard-won peace. And she wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that endings can be beginnings, and that your worth is yours to define, I need you to do something right now. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss another story of resilience and triumph. Hit that like button to help this story reach others who need to hear it. And comment below, telling me what spoke to you most about Maya's journey. Your engagement doesn't just support this channel. It creates a community of people choosing truth, dignity, and self-worth over bitterness and revenge. Let's grow this community together. The end of Maya's story isn't really an ending at all. It's a beginning that keeps beginning every single day, as she wakes up in a life she built with her own hands and her own courage. A life where she defines her worth. A life where truth matters more than appearances. A life where love is real and children laugh when dreams actually come true. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all, that we are the authors of our own stories, and no one else gets to hold the pen.